Welcome, guys, to another episode on this podcast. My name is Steven, and today we're talking about how much do you trust God? And we're going to be going through a couple people in the Bible who did trust God, and we're just going to see in today's modern life, are we willing to do the same things? And is God going to test us, and will we pass, right? So the first one we're going to talk about is Abraham. And he was quite old, and God told him out of one day that he was going to have a son. And Abraham thought that was crazy because he was very old, and when they were going to have the baby, Sarah at that was going to be 90. And, a 90-year-old person does not have a baby. But God can do anything. And God told Abraham that he would have a son and that his generations would be counted. They would have more children than you could count on the sand or the stars. And Abraham, it's hard to believe. He laughed at God. He thought it was impossible. He thought it was crazy. But then Sarah had a baby, and he trusted God. He thanked God and praised him. Now, there was another thing that he had to put trust in God on, because once his son was born, he named it Isaac. And when Isaac was a little older, God told Abraham to go and sacrifice Isaac. And any normal person in this time would say absolutely not. They would not kill their own child as a sacrifice. No one's willing to do that. It's something that is not easy, right? Even if you have trust in God, that's something you don't want to do because you also love your family. But Abraham, he listened to God, and he went up on a mountain, and he didn't tell Isaac anything. He told Isaac to bring some sticks, and he brought a knife, and he told Isaac to get on top, and he held him down, tied him with ropes, and he was going to kill him. He was about to. He was just the smallest amount away. But right as he was, God told him to stop. So to put the knife down. I was testing you. I wasn't actually going to make you kill your son. And in place of your son, here, I'll give you a ram or a lamb to sacrifice. And therefore, Abraham listened to God. He passed the test. His son did not die. And they gave a sacrifice to God. But the moral of the story is that he had to sacrifice his son. And not many people are willing to do that, even if they had trust in God. But Abraham listened regardless of what was going to happen, because his son was given by God. And because of that, his son belongs to God. And if God tells him what to do, he's gonna follow him. But this is unthinkable in today's culture. And it's not something that would happen again. But while this specific thing may not happen again, God knows what has value to you. He knows what means a lot to you. And he might ask something of you that is difficult. For example, he might ask you to quit your job and go preach the gospel to unreached people groups. And that's not easy as well, because that's dangerous. You're risking your life. You're going to quit your job, and you're going to go into a life of hardship. And not many people are willing to do that either. And God knows that. So these are tests that he specifically makes for us in order to see if we truly trust in him and believe in him. Because if we do, walking even the hardest path, he's going to be there with us, and he's going to just push us through. Now, the next story we're going to talk about is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, they are these young boys, 3 boys, and their town got taken over by Babylon. And they were chosen to work for the king, but they had to follow specific requests, such as eating meat or doing certain things, and they weren't willing to. They told the person they weren't going to eat meat. They weren't going to do these things. They were going to do things God's way, and they didn't care if they got punished. And over time, things did calm down a bit. They did get judged a lot less. But the king of Babylon created a statue, a really big statue, and that everyone's supposed to fall down and worship that statue every single time. And you see, the 3 boys, they were not going to worship the king. They were not going to worship a statue because they worship God. And they specifically told the king they weren't going to do that. Absolutely not. And the king was mad. You're not going to worship me? Okay, you're going to die. So they sent them into a fire. Fire was they made the fire so incredibly hot that if you simply walked near it, then their shields would melt. That's how hot it was. It was bad. But the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they did not care. They had no fear at all. So when they went in the fire, they just stood there. They didn't cry. They didn't scream. They didn't beg for mercy. They just stood there, and they didn't burn. They didn't burn at all. And the guards were just absolutely amazed. They were asking, how is this happening? And then they saw a fourth man along with the three boys. There was a fourth man in the fire. That was God. God was with these three boys in one of the hardest tests of their life, a test of faith where they chose not to worship an almighty king that could have killed them at any notice, but instead they chose to stick to their faith and follow God. And because of this, they did not get burned by the fire. They could not get hurt by the guards. They were safe, protected by God. And this faith just shows all the good things that would happen out of it, because God was with them. The king of Babylon chose to believe in God as well, and everything just completely changed. So because of these three boys, their trust in God he would lead them through the fire, because of this trust, a whole kingdom has just been brought, and so many people have put their faith in God. So they followed God despite the danger, and they did not get hurt. They were led through safely. This is another great story of the trust they put in God, even though they knew they were probably going to die, because God saving them isn't a guaranteed. It's not like he's going to save everyone. But the fact that they trusted God, God sees that, and he rewarded them by saving them. And this is just another way that God works. He gives us tests, and these tests eventually bring entire people under God, entire kingdoms, other friends. They come to know God because of the test that we face and that trust we put in God. Now, another person adding to the list is Moses. Moses was a very, very busy man. He was chosen by God, and God told him to go lead Israel out of Egypt, his chosen people out of Egypt. Now, a normal person, Moses, had to go up to a pharaoh, which is basically a president, and tell him, I'm going to take my people, you can't do anything about it, leave me alone. It's not exactly easy. And the pharaoh, obviously, he said no. He's not going to just give up these slaves, because back then Israel was enslaved by Egypt. And most of the time, probably 99% of the time, no one was going to give up slaves for no reason. That's not going to happen. So God told Moses to do all these miracles and things. And Moses was afraid. He told God, I'm not the one. You shouldn't make me do it. And God said, no, I'm here with you. You can do it. You're a good person. I trust you. And Moses said, no, I'm a little scaredy cat. And God got angry. He was like, okay, well, if you're so scared, then get your brother to go with you, because you're useless. And Moses was like, okay, I'll go get my brother. So it shows that God did get angry in that time, because Moses kept denying him. And Moses kept saying, no, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go talk with the Pharaoh because he's scary. But God got angry. God kind of told him to, and Moses had to follow his command. But he trusted in God the whole time. He did trust God, that God was going to lead him through and that he was going to be safe. And over time, he did grow in more faith, and he did trust God more and more, because God would make him do miracles, and these miracles was something that helped Moses grow. Because if God told you right now to go to the president and tell him these things, you'd be scared. But God also gave you the power to do miracles, and that gives you trust and faith in God himself. But even after Moses did lead Israel out of Egypt, he still had to keep them safe, keep them organized, and move them to the promised land. And that's also not an easy task, but he trusted God and he let God do everything. He just kept listening for his commandments, his word, and his will. And that's all he did. He was a messenger. That's his entire job. And us as people should also be like Moses. We can't do the miracles on our own. We can't talk to famous people on our own. But we are the messengers, and we let God do all the talking. We let God do all the work, and we just follow his will. He tells us to go somewhere, we're going to go there. It's something that we don't get to tell him, no, that's not fair, because he gave us this gift, and we didn't deserve it in any way. So nothing we can do could ever repay him, but we should definitely try our best. So if God tells you to do something and he's tugging on your heart to go somewhere and preach the gospel, don't say no. Trust in God, for he will lead you through the fire. Now, next person we're going to talk about is Daniel. Now, Daniel was a prominent man, and he believed in God. Now, in that time, it was also Babylon. They could not pray to God. That was not allowed. It was something against the law. Now, Daniel, as a follower of God, decided to break the rules and pray to God. And this seems like a difficult situation. God says to obey the laws and the rules of the world. But if the rules of the world go against God, what do you follow? Now, in this case, the Bible shows us that we should still follow God's word. We should still follow him instead of things that go against him. If the world tells you to kill, don't do that. It's something that is happening in the modern world. There are rules that are contradicting Christianity. There are things that go against the Bible, and we should stand up and protect our faith and go against that instead of staying quiet, instead of following the rules and doing what's normal. We should do what's right according to God. And Daniel did that. Daniel followed God, and because of that, he was put in prison. And they went so far as to throw Daniel into a den of lions. And 10 out of 10 times, the lions will eat the person. But this time, God does the impossible. He is in the ordinary, and he does the extraordinary. And he keeps Daniel safe, and the lions do not eat him. And in the morning, when they go back to see Daniel and take his body or whatever, they just see him lying with the lions just in there nice and cozy. And they ask him how. And same answer. The past 4 times, same answer. It was all God. David could not speak to the animals. He could not keep them calm. No, God did that because God has the power and he is almighty and he keeps us safe because we put our trust in him and we followed him even though the odds were against us and we were probably going to die. It's pretty amazing. God's with us the whole time. And you might think, oh, these are just stories, but they're happening in the real world. You can search up testimonies of when people were about to die, but somehow they escaped, or things that were like miracles happened that kept them alive. And there are still stories like this today. People think that God has taken a backdoor seat when he's not. He's more active than ever. But in this world, everything seems so lonely. Everything seems so far apart because we simply aren't listening to God's word. And we have to trust him. We have to believe in him and truly find other people to spread the gospel about. And then you'll see the miracles that God's working. When you talk to others about Jesus, you'll see how God is moving in their lives. You'll see how he is changing people every single day. Another person we're going to talk about is Mary. Now, Mary is Jesus' mother, and she had a very difficult choice. She wasn't even married yet, but God told her to bear a son for him, who's going to be named as Jesus. And because of this choice, she was going to get a lot of hate for it. People would think that she cheated on Joseph and that she had a baby before they were even married, which is against the rules. But Mary decided to trust God and have the baby, which is also difficult because your son is going to be the Messiah. And that's also something very scary that you have to trust God with. You have to trust God that your son's going to be okay, that you're going to be safe, and that everything ends up okay, because being the Messiah attracts a lot of attention, which you might not want. Now, there's also her husband, Joseph, who also had to put trust in God, because he was going to cut off his relationship with Mary. Now, this was an incredibly considerate move by Joseph, because cutting the relationships with Mary would keep her from being shamed by the public or having to face punishment from the law. And this was to keep her safe, which shows just how great of a man Joseph was. But God told Joseph to not do this. Stay with Mary, for her son is going to be the Messiah, the Son of God. And Joseph had a choice: either be shamed publicly for having a wife who cheated on him, or just stay with her and have some honor within God's kingdom. And he chose to trust in God. He chose to believe in him, that his son would be the Messiah and things would end up okay. And they did. You don't hear about them much in the Bible, but you do hear that they are okay, that Jesus is an amazing person, and they have been blessed with the fact that they are the parents of Jesus, the Messiah. Now, the final person we're going to talk about, which we've already said before, is going to be Noah. Noah has put so much trust in God in the story of Noah's Ark, for God told him to build a boat to survive a flood. And Noah listened, because first of all, it hasn't rained in his area for so long that they even forgot what rain was. And the people were going to judge him for that, the fact that he was building a boat when there was a drought going on. And he didn't even know if God was lying or not, because no one else believed in God, so what if he was wrong? But Noah put his trust in God, and he spent 120 years building an ark. And he was judged the whole time. He was laughed at and mocked the whole time. But he kept his faith in God and built the ark, and he's the only person who survived the flood. I'm not going to go into much detail about the story because we talked about it in the last episode, but every single one of these stories just show that these people have all put their trust in God, and God has led them through the fire. He has kept them safe and kept his promises. and was sure to make them be great and honorable people that were rewarded and blessed for their faith in God. There are tests that will happen to you in your life. These things will come. There will be sufferings because God knows what is in your heart. He knows what you love the most, and He's going to use that to see if you care about that more than Him. He's going to see if you love money more than Him. He's going to test if you love gaming more than Him. He's going to care if you love fame, popularity, or anyone else more than Him. And He's going to use that to tempt you and put you in a place so far down that you realize that what you used to have value in meant nothing at all. But you still had God throughout the whole time, and that you need God no matter what. That's what all these people had in common. They lost everything but kept their faith in God, and they were rewarded for it. And so thank you for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, that you truly take into heart and you put your trust in God even when you're in the hardest areas or you're suffering, but that you put your trust in God. So thank you for listening and have a great day.